Welcome to Between Data and Risk podcast. Today we'll talk about building data science capabilities and pipelines with our guest, Panduka Nagahawatte, Vice President of Data Science at Majestic Steel US. Stay tuned.
If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hi, I'm Artur, Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risk and Strategy Officer, and with me is my co-host, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to this episode of Between Data and Risk. Today we'll take a fresh look at the recent developments in AI/ML space, their impact on the business and data science world. We have with us Panduka Nagahawatte, Vice President of Data Science at Majestic Steel, who agreed to share some of his experiences with us. Hello, Panduka.
Hello, Marian. Hello, Artur. Good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I have a rare pleasure to speak to data scientists here. So I'm really excited to compare the notes, so to speak. As you know, we discussed previously, AI and ML are full of buzzwords and empty promises. Now we have ChatGPT, which unfortunately fulfills some of these promises. I just wanted to ask you, as a practitioner working with business, what are the biggest misconceptions that you encounter? What are, let's say, the things that you need to explain over and over again about things that data science can or cannot do?
Absolutely. So the biggest misconceptions or the biggest misinterpretations or biases attached are just the terms ML and AI. They are actually really full of pitfalls in understanding, especially when we move away from the technical crowd to a business crowd, right? So they are actually interpreted as silver bullets that would solve most of these data problems, which is one big risk because it sets expectations for the business executive in a certain way who's investing in these projects, and without the communication, without those expectations set correctly, the data science initiatives are really prone to failure. I think Gartner research did a publication a few years back. I remember 80% of the data science initiatives were deemed failures, right? So what was in that misconception of an expectation from ML, AI, just the buzzwords, right? And then it gets even worse as soon as we get into NLP and visual analytics, things like that. The power that the imagination brings is really strong. So we can go into a deeper in any of the sections.
It absolutely agrees with our experience.
Those are the early initial.
How do you approach it? Because you have a business owner or business sponsor, or any other business person coming to you and say, "Yes, please give me this. I've read about this wonderful AI. I want oomph," and you know that oomph is thoroughly and completely impossible given the state of data. What's your practical approach to stop people in their tracks and curb their imagination a little?
Absolutely. So the idea is that the way I approach a data science initiative is strictly by defining a business problem and a problem statement in the very beginning, right? This really paints a picture of the business problem that we are trying to solve. And in that could be held as the North Star in this journey that we are going to set forth. Then the second aspect of that is collaboration and communication are critical in these journeys. I train my team, like my managers as well as individual contributors, really to go out and have conversations, have collaborations with all the business stakeholder groups, right? So that's where the secret sauce comes into play. Because of that, we really are not business units or teams in separate rooms with closed doors just talking amongst ourselves, right? So because of that, we can really have conversations, establish relationships, and establish productive, respectable relationships. That way, both teams really listen to each other, because the data scientists, even I'm guilty of this at some points, we really think of an analytical solution without really understanding the business domain knowledge, or having an appreciation for what the business team could go through, right? I can think of a couple of examples where the warehouse settings or the sales people who are going to be using these solutions, they really have nuances that we might want to consider, and we can factor those into our algorithms. But that's a responsibility that the data scientists have. And then on the other hand, what I'm trying to stop in tracks, like as soon as they are brought out, is just a business executive coming in and saying, we need to use visual analytics, or we need to use NLP, probably to solve a time series problem that we just could use a simple linear regression model, things like that. So the best part of it is, like, what fascinates me, what excites me all the time is really collaborating with the business units in order to get that expectation set up. And in that, I really think of it as a learning journey for me, because that gives an opportunity for me to learn the business and really build up and really think of a thorough solution with all the different aspects that we could factor in through a mathematical or a statistical equation. And then,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mentioned to you that I wrote a book about data mesh, and for me, what is the most exciting part is not the part where you have the central platform or the architecture of data products. It's about creating this environment of cooperation between data people and domain business people, and bringing people together to the table. Now, we asked you about this, misconceptions about the power of AI and ML. How do you approach to translating business needs into algorithms? Because for us, it's we have our methodology where we try to focus on processes and decisions and try to think what data can support what decision. But what's your, let's say, secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing? Like, you have people and they say, I want to have more sales. And now, okay, I'm happy. We all do. The question is, how does it translate to algorithms? And I think that's the element of conversation, which many business people would like to also be able to perform better.
Absolutely. Just hearing about wanting to increase sales is a very open-ended, very commonly asked question of me, right? So you asked the right proper question from me to answer. So let's take that as an example. So this actually has been a question that's asked. Let's break it down and look at different avenues that we can pursue in order to answer the question. How do we increase sales? When we look at it, the first approach I take is just to profile the status quo, right? And take a look at history as well. Data allows us to just do that, and then in that experience, not just understand the status quo, but even understand some pitfalls or some risks in data as well, right? When we do that, we can really ask the question: is increasing sales, does that mean that we need to stop customer churn? That would take us in a certain way of an algorithm, right? Just to really think about anomalies, purchasing anomalies, or just stop anomalies, or seasonal purchasing patterns, things like that, to understand that. So that's number one. And then number two would be, are these customers who are purchasing, can we help them purchase more, right? So that's a novel approach that we are trying to take with most of our customers, because if we can help them by giving them data science options as a value add on top of the supply chain offerings that we have, right? That means they can sell more to their customers, or they can consume more, thereby turning around and buying some, right? So that brings us to an entirely different domain where we need to understand the customers as well. The third part is, how do we acquire brand new customers? How do we acquire brand new business, right? So in that regard, this becomes a sort of a traditional analytical approach where we really need to profile the customers, and then we need external data. So we need to buy external data from other companies. There are aggregators that help us do that. Once we do that, what we have successfully done is actually build GIS platforms, really to understand who are the customers and where are they geographically located close to our product, our processing centers.
If you could explain to some of the non data science audience, what is a GIS platform?
Oh, absolutely. So I will answer that question. Let's talk in general terms first, and then we'll get to GIS, right? So the idea is, we operate, every business operates in a geographical in geography, right? Constraints. We have supply chain logistics issues. We have like time that actually changes markets. So that makes it there's a time component added to it as well. So it becomes spatiotemporal in a sense. So now in these geographies, a GIS system really helps us do a few things. First of all, understand how are we located in geography in the US, right? Where are all our processing centers? In one map, we could show that. Then we could add another layer of all the businesses who are really who are buying from us currently, right? By annotating all their addresses with a latitude and longitude. So these business executives who are listening into this this forum here, it's not, you can go out and buy solutions to do it, but there is, with very little investment, you could grow an in-house project using Python, using R, because these are mostly freely available tools that you can buy to do that, right? Because those addresses, enriching that with the latitude and longitude allows the entire enterprise to use those systems. So GIS stands for Geographical Information Systems. These are basically just annotating, enriching the addresses with the latitude and longitude, having them stored in the database, and then in the back end, building just very basic logic to understand the distance between these two, 2 points in space. And then also you could really, if you are thinking about GCP or Azure platforms like that, they provide additional services to get driving distance, so on and so forth. And there are some APIs that allow you to do that as well. So one cool thing to mention here is that there are differences from as the crow flies distance to an actual truck route that would bring a large heavy load from point A to point B. There are significant differences there. So if you are really thinking about this for practical purposes, to even understand your transportation logistics, I would highly recommend using some type of an API that actually allows you to get driving distance and truck driving distance, not car driving distance. So those are the things. So Marian, is that good enough as far as the GIS system is concerned?
Yes, absolutely. It's I have some experience in talking to business people as well, and I really like the way you explain things, and I think it's really practical, and this is something that we value. I'm sorry, Artur has some technical problems. He's on British Telecom, so unfortunately sometimes he drops. So it's not. Please don't think that he got impatient. Your explanations are really good. I really regret that he can't hear them, but. Fortunately, I still have a lot of questions because actually I can't remember what we spoke about this. Absolutely.
One thing. So you asked me about the different algorithms. How do we make decisions on different algorithms, right? And then I was just going down the path of the direction you gave me about getting new business. So the last part I want to add is, so we really up to now I've just used just basic statistical methodologies as algorithms, right? Anomaly detection. Then we can cluster like customers, right? The nearest neighbor algorithms, things like that, to understand who's buying like-minded and all that. So now when we have a brand new pool of companies who are potential customers of ours, now comes the cool part where we can actually use some of the ML methodologies, AI methodologies using NLP and visual analytics, right? So let's imagine one of the things that we really looked into is that scraping some of the potential customer websites. This happens all the time. I mean, Google, everybody, they do that, larger companies. Right. But how could we use this in customer acquisition? The idea is, once we get the website, all the text, we can identify the products that these customers purchase, right? And are they in alignment with the products that we sell? Because we are not selling a full gamut of products. We are selling a certain bag of products ourselves, right? So we want to make sure that we don't contact, or we don't waste resources going after companies who are not interested in our product. So NLP is a natural fit in that regard. That comes in and helps us do that at scale, because these are thousands of companies, and we need to update. We just don't have human resources to do that, so we can build bots to do that and enrich our data. That's one thing. And then the second part is training models to identify images that are of a certain
of
product.
Products which you can supplement with your
Right.
half products or your sales. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. To be honest, I consider
in our
it
product line.
Absolutely fantastic use of NLP. Most of the, let's say, customer segmentation I did was on B2C segment, so it works a bit differently. But I think it's truly brilliant solution from the operational standpoint. Like, so you mentioned that your GIS system you built in-house. So I guess that because there is always this balance between buy it or build it. So I guess you are on the build it side. How do you build a team capable of building these solutions for you? Because you need people from data engineering, you need people from software development, you need people from data science. So how do you approach creating and leading this team, which is capable of delivering such really brilliant solution?
Thank you for the compliment, and the team has been amazing at putting these solutions together. So how what's the thinking behind building these teams? So the way I describe it, I wish I had this PowerPoint presentation where I did it nicely. I have a nice graphic to show this. Imagine a Venn diagram with three different sets.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
One is business domain knowledge. The other one is technology. The last one is statistics / mathematics. Right? And they are intersecting one another, and they are right in the middle is the intersection of all these three sets. So to me, a perfect data scientist is a jack of all trades who lives in the middle of this, right? Where the business in the business set, there's business domain knowledge, there's communication, there's storytelling, all those that's embedded in there. Technical is what most of us are quite familiar with from a technical point of view: programming languages, Python, SQL, platforms like Hadoop, Azure, AWS that provides those services, languages like PySpark. And then the statistics and mathematics adds the true value of a data scientist, where that experimental thinking mindset comes.
This is something I would like to emphasize and underline, because we very much agree on this point. That real data scientist cannot think that statistics is something he can omit. I'm in my work. I spend a lot of time explaining, an example, confidence intervals to people, because I believe that it's much better description of the reality around us, especially in the times of big data. The mathematics behind p-value is such that you will see some differences, but the effect scale or effect magnitude is something that you will lose. So I'm really happy that you mentioned it, because it's my big worry. I'm sorry to interrupt the train of thought, but I find that business people often they want quick, easy answers, and they deal poorly with uncertainties. So sorry to derail you. We will get back to building the team, but you touched something which is really close to my heart. How do you deal? Sometimes the only honest answer in data science is, I don't know. The data is we gathered is insufficient to provide answer with the certainty that would justify making an informed decision. Do you have this situation sometimes, and how do you actually talk to people who they just want to hear, okay, left, right, center, whatever, right, and you say somewhere between left and right, maybe.
Right. So no problem about derailing. it looks like you are a fellow ADD fanatic, where my brain goes every which direction as well. So a quote comes to my mind, Marian, from past President Harry Truman. Right, he had said about economists that someday he expects to meet a one-handed economist, where they don't come to you with options, rather than it could go this way, this way, just right. And
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes.
I feel like that. I feel like that sometimes talking, and you mentioned something about confidence intervals. You'll have to teach me your tricks, because I really haven't had a success story. I don't have a success story to share where I put confidence intervals, or talked about confidence intervals, and really broke through to a business unit. But how do I tackle this? With experience, I really have come to understand experience, and of course with the business domain knowledge. Right, I have come to understand and appreciate sort of a balance where I have a little bit of room to play. Right, it has multiple aspects. Number one, I know the audience a little like intimately. So if there are some executives who actually are really data, they are very much knowledgeable about data, statistics, things like that. Maybe they have a PhD themselves. Maybe they have done some real good work, in their thesis, or they actually are really interested in learning these and guiding with a data mindset, right? Data-driven mindset. So those are the champions, as I call them in my world, where I really have a good relationship. I can talk to them about it, and they can listen and hear me openly without biasing, getting really biased about these nuances that we talk about, right, in data, and how it could go. And there are some audiences I dare not speak any statistics or math, and I would rather go with a decision. And at that decision, it's a big risk that I take on to the data science team, just because we need to give them a either a yes or no, or a left or right, or perhaps 1 out of 5 options, right? Things like that. The way I mitigate that risk is really having myself and my team embedded in that business unit. That way we really understand. And then if we do have subject matter experts who are individual contributors, senior level individual contributors, we sort of do some POCs. We show them what we've done, the nuances of data. Here are the outcomes, so the results, right? So I go with both extremes, where I go with to some audiences, I really specify all the nuances, as well as for some business audiences, it's nothing but one decision point.
But what I really like, and what I think generalizes pretty well, is yes, there will be audiences which are pretty, let's say that they are sometimes too busy to really understand all the nuances, and then understanding their business. I love it because it falls together. We spoke about this coming closer to the business, and then if they cannot embark more data science or statistics, then you need to embark a bit more business working with them. So I really like it. It's
right.
I very often met so-called data scientists who thought themselves too important to go down to the dungeons or to trenches and see how the things actually work. And even in big corporations, I've seen wonderful models just sitting there because they didn't even bother informing the business that these models are available. So I really like your approach. I think it's a good moment to get back to building the team, because I think such a do you, because maybe I'm too cynical, but I don't think you have really many people capable to sit in the middle of this three. When you have this Venn diagram, you have people who are sitting on these three petals around, and then you have specialists in their areas. So if you will tell me that you have like 20 or of these people that sit right in the middle, I will start getting jealous, and I will ask where to apply to your company because I want to work in such environment. How do you utilize these different, I would say, specialists, and how do you make sure that but in the end the business is well served?
So you're absolutely right. It's very very rare to see that one or two people who sit in that very center of all the intersections, right? The way I look at it is it's really developing these individuals. So now you are taking me to the leadership aspect of data science. How do we grow these individuals, right? So I have personal conversations with my team members, whether I've recruited them brand new, or else we just have these continuous conversations about, okay, what have you been interested in? Where do you want to take your career? And really understanding what their passions are, and then lining them up. So I have team members who are strictly from a business view, right? They have a background in business administration, marketing. They are very they are extroverts, personality wise. So and they don't want to, let's assume that they don't want to get into the nitty gritty of data science. Exactly, right? They don't want anything technical. So then one thing that I really didn't mention earlier in this podcast is about the emphasis on project management aspect, right? The agile project management of making a data science successful. So those individuals will really play a monumental role in absorbing business domain knowledge, really getting it into the team, keeping the project flowing smooth, and really acting as liaisons between the technical data person who really doesn't want to talk to anyone but just do their coding, right? So that's how they are used. But if they say that, okay, I have actually had only a marketing major, something like that, but I'm really interested in learning about technical knowledge, right? So we sort of set up a path where we really teach them SQL, then Python. We start out with Excel formulas, basically. Just because that's a great starting point for that business individual, right? Because we don't want to scare them away, and then just evolve them on the path, right? So that's the way. And then if it's a technical person who's really, and I have a couple of these individuals as well, who are really, they are amazing software engineers. They are amazing with coding, and they do have a stat and math background, just because of the work that they've done, but they really want to absorb that business domain knowledge. So how do I train them to tell stories, communicate, and interact with the business users? So that's the thing. But here's the biggest risk there, Marian. The biggest risk is, obviously, this takes a very long time to develop these individuals to that level. What happens most of the time, this is from experience, as soon as a business team member absorbs a little bit of technical knowledge, they are recruited away to higher paid positions, either outside of the company, things like that. So the human aspect comes about, developing into play, and that's great for them. I really appreciate it. It's all people's passions and them gaining the best opportunities for them and their families. But at the same time,
just previous episode, we had this discussion. We spoke with CIO of one of manufacturing companies. So we discussed the problem that people with a little knowledge are the most dangerous. Because if you have someone who admits, okay, guys, I know my business, you know the data, let's talk. Okay, and this is the perfect situation. We know our stuff, you know your stuff. Let's make something together. The problem starts when you have people who know a little. I've heard that just recently some mathematicians debunked the Dunning-Kruger effect, but I still think that there is a risk when you teach someone a little, and this is when I was teaching sailing actually 20 years ago. The people who knew a little were the most dangerous behind the steering wheel. Okay, so before our technical break, we spoke about people who know a little, and it actually leads us to self-serve analytics, which is one of my personal favorites to talk about. Because you mentioned that you invest a lot in people, and they learn a little, and then they leave to much better paid positions. And I must admit that very often I meet a lot of resistance, especially when we started about talking advanced statistics and confidence intervals. It's the people who know a little who tend to think that they know enough, and they want tools for self-serve analytics because they know everything that there is. Is it a problem sometimes, and how do you deal with it? Because everything that we discuss right now, you have really looks like the structure of the data science that you build is, in my opinion, flawless. So I wonder how do you approach this one?
Thank you. Let's approach that question in at least two directions to keep it short. So self-serve analytics in dashboarding, I'm open to that, right? Because the idea there is a business stakeholder who has a lot of these, the domain knowledge, they understand the business rules, they can really pivot, they can take a look at these data in multiple different ways, right? And then they can make up their minds. The idea is we take then the data team, this is not really data science, this is the data engineering team, takes the risk of fueling them with proper high quality data, and then the risk of that interpretation and the analysis falls onto the business side, right? So that's the equation I look at, and then I'm very upfront with my colleagues when I talk about this, when they ask for self-serve solutions for their teams, and then that works well. Switching gears, there's another sort of an extreme which really scares me, and these are conversations that I have with my colleagues. There are some platforms that allow business individuals to upload data and run all these different statistical models, AI models, things like that. And that scares me just because of the risk we are taking. This goes back to the point you made earlier. These are, you and I talked about it last time, as when we spoke about it. These are beautiful interfaces, just flawless, and they make you feel very techy. They make me feel very techy, and I feel like I'm in this, like at times these. There you go. Yes, in this control room with all these nice ones. So that just the risk is too much for me to take. So I do not usually, I try to avoid investments in products like that, just because the risks we carry are much higher. Because the other problem is when those self-serve options are released into the wild, the interpretations are done without understanding the biases of these algorithms, biases, limitations of these statistical methodologies, and the decisions are made and they are executed in business before we can even know. We can really advise, evaluate, and collaborate. Just because. Yeah, exactly. So that's a part I don't like. But as far as dashboarding is concerned, as a self-service, I'm very, very open to it.
Okay, that's I like dashboarding tools because they can save millions, and I've participated in projects where millions were saved on reporting just because things were moved to cloud, integrated together, and people could. It also was pretty funny because all of a sudden, when people had to click their dashboards themselves, they realized how few reports they really need. If it was no longer data team, but they could just, if you could just create me a chart of this versus that, and they had to actually do it themselves. They started to appreciate the time needed to develop some of the analytics, and also ask questions like why I can't do this. It seems simple, because it's not exactly related, and this connection in data and number of different tables you need to go through, it actually means that what you're trying to see, it's not directly related. You can, if you try hard, you can connect them, but this direct relation that you have in your mind is not maybe exactly reflected in the reality, so to speak. No, it's really, really interesting. So now we have a team that you build. You take people who have specific knowledge in the three areas of the Venn diagram. You have very few people in the middle who try to bring, let's say, people a bit closer. And now we have this discussion with business. If you are building a data pipe, like what's your approach? Because there are different ways of doing it. One is spaghettification of data pipelines. So if the business wants it, business gets it, and maintenance be damned. The other extreme is we build one chart a year, but it's well defined and documented.
Right.
I have a feeling that there is some middle ground in the middle. How do you approach when you know that the business needs some new types of analytics and it requires some extra work on a development side? How do you approach it?
Right. So I mentioned earlier the problem statement that we define when a business stakeholder approaches us. That is that North Star that we take, right? Then going from there to an actual solution, the journey, what I have been leading to do, and what my team has been doing, is taking an agile approach. So we have multiple flavors of agile depending on the size of the enterprise. You could have a structured agile framework with different release trains, or else you could have just Scrum teams, a Scrum agile approach with smaller Scrum teams, right? So the idea
we had
is
we had the whole episode on agile. Just when we started, we were discussing with Artur, and I'm pretty proud that when I worked for Sony, I introduced agile analytics in our team. So it's again, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so
and that's so sorry. So we try to walk that balanced line where we really put much more emphasis on actual working analytical software products or data products that's of high quality as the output of the organization, going into the business units. And then we do have documentation, but we try to, our DevOps practices, we try to have inline code that actually really helps our new data scientists or the maintenance aspect there, right? And then I can't think of the library right now, but when we do that inline coding, we follow these standards where we could actually run another program and generate additional web pages of documentation if needed, right?
Yeah,
so that way, that aspect is also fulfilled, and then we try to do our best to maintain a regression test suite as well, just so that that continuous integration keeps happening, and we could automate it to a very high level, just to keep the velocity moving forward. So the idea there is, with the business units there, just the demand management and prioritization becomes critical, right? Because we have very limited resources who actually could do this coding at this level, and what's the best outcome, what are the priorities of the enterprise. And that's what, at that point, that's what we use as the North Star metric in order to evaluate. And then we have sprints, 2-week sprints that we run. And then we provide our output, and then UAT happens at the end of the end of each sprint, signing off, and then we move on to the next, and then the idea is, I think it was Heraclitus who said, "Best is the worst enemy of better." Right? So we follow that. Mindset.
And the better is enemy of good. For sure, of good enough. I have the last question, because we had a pretty heated discussion about different agile methodologies and mindsets. Because I understand that creating a pipeline and creating a technology is Scrummable, so to speak. Do your data scientists, when you work on a new analytics, you test different models? Do your data scientists, and I mean, this middle guys, do they also work in sprints, or is it reserved for software development?
No, it's they also follow the same 2-week sprints. They are also like that. So the thing is, we don't. There are no expectations, right? Rather, a learning model. If we need to deploy something like that, we set the expectations up front. And we follow story points, either by effort, work weeks, or story point limits, in order to identify how arduous, or how much effort do we need to put into each task. The one thing that we try to do is we try to break things down. This is something that we are evolving right now. So if we take a model that let's estimate that it's going to take 2 months to go from end to end, right? Let's break it down into chunks where we can say, okay, data coming in and pre-processing. That's 8 story points, right? And then the model testing is another, let's say 4 weeks of work, just to identify and compare the models, compare their performance, and understand the nuances, right? So we do that, and we try to break it down into areas, because at the end of each sprint, there's no expectation of a product to be fully done or a feature to be fully completed. We just report on the progress of that, right? Because that's an expectation that's it. So you brought up a very, very interesting argument earlier, where business folks, they really need something, and they really need the solutions right now, right? And we know that these data science models are not like that. I mean, we can just take a library, put some data into it, hand it over, but that doesn't mean anything, right? So that's what I'm trying to overcome.
I agree. That's my biggest worry. That's my biggest worry about sprints. Like, okay, in 2 weeks we need to have something working. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the reality turns out to be a bit more complicated than everybody expected.
Absolutely, and sometimes we come to the end of a sprint and we realize, like at UAT. Or not UAT, but let's say one of these models, we just discuss and we find a terminal flaw that we really don't have some data attributes, and we have to scrap that entire thing and go back and start fresh, right? Go back to the drawing board. So those are there, and by reporting the effort and the like at least a partial outcome of it, we're just trying to show the business stakeholders it's moving at a snail's pace, and this is what we've been doing, right? So that's a basic idea, just to keep them apprised on the work that's been done.
Okay, I think we covered quite a lot during our discussion. I really loved it. I'm really happy to hear that there are people who share my fanaticism about the quality of importance of quality of data analytics and data science. So I'm really grateful that we had this conversation, because I was starting to lose hope slowly. Thank you very much. If I don't know, do you publish anything, or do you think there are some good sources that you would like to point other than classical, let's say, literature like Heracles and stuff?
For business data users, there's just an easy read book called Data Science for Business Stakeholders, and that's a good one just to read. And then other than that, most of the books that I read are usually a little bit deeper into a technical crowd. So that's a one thing I have to mention. Okay. And thank you so much for inviting me. I had a great time speaking with you as well.
Thank you for accepting our invitation, and let's hope it was of use to someone.
Thank you for listening.
Also, don't miss the next one, where we'll be talking to J.D. Whitlock, CIO of Dayton Children's Hospital, about responsibility of using patients' data.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit bdr.show to find out more about future episodes and guests. You can also check out Cognition.llc for more information on Cognition Shared Solutions, our services, and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and my co-host, Artur.
Thank you.